My name is Marie Ahearn, and I'm at Boston College in Boston, Massachusetts. My ancestors all came from Ireland. The earliest came in the 1830s. The first were William Jakes and Bridget Murren were a couple. She was his second wife. They traveled to New York with his 5 children from his first marriage, and then they proceeded to have 6 more. So my great-grandmother was their youngest child. William had the 11th child of William Jakes. He was a stone cutter. He worked all over the state. They ended up back in New York City, and when he died, Bridget and her 3 youngest children came to Salem, Massachusetts. The second family that came were John McDonald and Julia O'Connor. They were both from County Cork, and they also settled in Salem. Then my great-grandfather was a child, John Fogarty. He came with his widowed mother from Mitchellstown, Cork, and his younger brother, and the baby, Patrick, who died on board the boat. His brother, Thomas, died during the Civil War, and John married Maria Jakes, and they lived in Salem. Michael Ahearn and Margaret Guiney were both from, well, I don't know where Michael Ahearn was actually from. Margaret Guiney came from Cork, so I sort of thought that he did as well. They settled in South Danvers, which is now Peabody, Massachusetts, and he worked in the tannery. William Collins was my great-grandfather, and his whole family came from County Tipperary, Cloheen Market, I believe. I don't know, I think I'm saying that wrong, but the family was evicted for not paying rent, and I don't know what happened to William and his mother. He was the youngest, but the others all came to Danvers, Massachusetts, and eventually William and his mother arrived in 1855, and he grew up in Danvers. His parents were Christopher Collins and Ellen Prendergast. They had 5 children, and his brother Henry and Henry's wife Margaret had, I think it was 8 children. And most of the males went off to the Civil War and were Civil War veterans. William's brother Thomas also died as a result of injuries in the Civil War. And William then married Joanna O'Connor, who came from Ballyduff Lower in Waterford. She arrived in 1864, and they lived in Danvers. They had 5 children. Their older surviving daughter was my grandmother. My grandmother, Ellen McCoy, came as a child. She and her sister, she was 11 at the time. She came from Grange, which is near Newcastle West in Limerick. I assume that her parents were dead because she came to live with her brothers. And eventually she worked as a domestic and met and married Michael McDonald, the son of John McDonald and Joanna Connor. And she was widowed, young. Her husband drowned crossing an ice-covered river that obviously wasn't very secure on Christmas Eve, and she was left 5 months pregnant and with 4 young children, and she went on to become quite comfortable. She bought real estate and lived comfortably and left enough money to my grandfather so that he could buy himself a car and eventually buy the house that I now live in.